Sometimes we get stuck. Sometimes literally stuck in the mud, stuck with a dead battery or a flat tire. But in the larger context, metaphorically, we might find ourselves at times in a rut or unable to break a bad habit. We've all been there. We often rely on the "I've always done it this way" phrase as an argument or a defense. I think of one of my favorite sitcom characters, Dr. Sheldon Cooper from The Big Bang Theory and later on young Sheldon, who always claimed his spot on the couch and at the lunchroom table. And metaphorically, it was because he didn't know how to change. By the time the series ended, he had experienced great growth. That's a conversation for another time. But of course, some of the things we cling to aren't necessarily bad in themselves. But openness to change can be a life-giving experience. Jesus speaks today essentially about matters of the heart. He doesn't speak explicitly about the best of them, really gets to those baser instincts. But in doing so, he's explaining how things work for us. It's not easy to hear what you are capable of when you allow your heart to be filled with those things that Jesus describes. But we've all faced those moments at the brink where we see what we're capable of doing when we let go of our conscience. It's difficult, then, to open a hardened heart, to allow your heart to be moved, to be renewed, and to be shaped by God's grace, to be a dwelling not of all those other sins and evils, but for your heart to be a dwelling place of charity, of peace, and of goodness. Moses encouraged the Israelites as they were preparing to enter the promised land that God's law was given to them, planted in their hearts for a purpose. And St. James reminds us today in the second reading that all good giving and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights. He goes on and says, "Humbly welcome the word that has been planted in you and is able to save your souls." This is the movement of our hearts. We don't want our hearts filled with filth and all that motivates sin. There's more than enough of that in the world already. We need to be open to the gifts of God and always to be attentive to his call to be changed when we get stuck. It is here in our worship that we seek to be moved, to be made holy by the gifts of God. I mentioned at the beginning of the Mass that the primary aim of the liturgy is to give God glory and to build us up in holiness. This is what we're about. And today, in a particular way, in our renewed church and with our new organ, we know how the Lord works in us to touch and inspire our hearts, so that we might live for God alone, which means that we live by his gifts rather than the things of our own making. St. Thomas Aquinas, in a sermon on the Apostles' Creed, said this: "One will observe that all things are arranged according to their degrees of beauty and excellence, and that the nearer they are to God, the more beautiful and the better they are." Beauty, in short, points to God, leads us to God, and beauty is an expression of the divine presence. Both Pope Benedict XVI and Pope Francis have reflected on beauty as an encounter with mystery, because beauty stirs and moves our hearts. The beauty of creation is the very work of God, as you might be moved by the beauty of a dramatic sunrise, or a mountain range, or the crashing of the waves at the beach. The beauty of charity and selfless love. The beauty of the lover and the beloved gazing into one another's eyes. And here, the beauty of our devotion, our prayer, and the liturgy. This is one of the reasons we undertook this project in the first place. The renewal of this sacred space enables the renewal of our worship, and the renewal of our worship enables the ongoing renewal and purification of our hearts. I pray that the beautiful music we make for the Lord as an act of worship and praise may also be itself a gift from the Lord. Because our sacred music inspires us, it becomes the voice of God speaking to our hearts to touch and purify our hearts as we lift our hearts to the Lord. What follows that from the liturgy is our witness, our service, and our charity that are also renewed and purified as we glorify the Lord by the living of our lives. I want to pause and offer an acknowledgement because the crafters, the artisans who built this instrument are here tonight. John Paragallo III, John Paragallo IV, both with your families, but John 3 and John 4, stand up so we can thank you for your work. Is that John 5 sitting there? Okay, there's the next. So this is a 4-generation organ building family. And there's the 5th generation being steeped right now. Thank you for your artisanship, your craftsmanship. The console itself is a work of art, made of mahogany to match all of the rest of the woodwork, walnut and rosewood, all hand-carved in their wood shop with their craftsmen. The more than 2,100 pipes, each individually tuned as its own musical instrument, now serving to create great harmony, to lift us up and stir our hearts, to move them with devotion and joy for praise of God. This is what the liturgy is to be about, to move us and move us in this place that our hearts are always being renewed and purified. What would happen if we always focused on such change and ongoing renewal in the purifying of our hearts? We wouldn't constantly get stuck. We would be able to give up judgmentalism, gossip, envy, and bias. We could discipline our thoughts and stop entertaining delicious resentments or nursing old grudges. We would stop telling old tales that bring welcome attention to ourselves and rather create a new repertoire of helpful things to say in their place. Purity of heart demands openness to being moved by beauty and the presence of God, who is seeking to build us up in holiness. It also requires vigilance on our part, daily and hourly practice, and a lot of space for forgiveness of both ourselves and others. Our war-torn world aches for such transformation, and this is the path of holiness God marks out for us. Amen? Amen.